always find the discussion on disaster recovery very important. Having worked in mainframe environments and in a number of server rooms, I've seen a lot of disasters occur, such as fire sprinkler discharges or floods or leaks. I can't express enough how important computer network users and individuals should always have a plan to recover their data. I know it doesn't always occur in the day-to-day world for individual computer users, but it's commonplace in most networking environments to have a backup plan and data recovery. I've spent a number of years working as a continuity practitioner, and I help companies build plans for their disaster recovery. When data is lost, especially in a large workplace environment, significant downtime can occur, and depending on what they do, significant money can be lost. Imagine if you had, let's say, a server room that was impacted for a customer call center. Imagine how many calls would be lost per day and what type of impact that would have on their customers. It's a little bit different for the day-to-day computer user. If they lose their data, only one computer has a loss. But to that individual, that loss could be significant. For example, imagine if they were a researcher and all the research they had were stored on that computer with no backup. Or maybe they were an author who kept entire books on their hard drive. A significant amount of their work can be lost. Usually people put no thought into this until something has occurred. I think you could agree things can and do go wrong, especially with technology. One thing I like to do in advance is to enable the boot logging option in Windows. You can do this by pressing the F8 menu. What this does is it creates a log file, and it's really called ntbtlog.txt. So it's a text file, and this is actually saved in the Windows registry. When boot logs are performed, this file is appended, so it's very useful to troubleshoot common problems because it logs all of the drivers and services and resources as they're loading. This file serves as your reference to locate problems within the boot. It'll basically describe what the drivers loaded and what they did not load. So it maintains a list of devices in chronological order as they're loaded. And then you'll be able to identify which files loaded, and you can look for the keywords of load failed or did not load driver, and that can point you in the right direction to cover any issues. On this slide, you see common disaster recovery screens for Microsoft Windows that allow you to completely reset a PC or to begin disaster recovery from a device such as a USB drive or a compact disc. And you can see the Restart Now button for that option. So you click right there in the gray area and that gets it going. So you do have some options, but not all of them retain the data that you had. One option that you have when experiencing a disaster or recovering a system is to access the boot menu by pressing F8 immediately after the post process. You can then choose to operate in safe mode as a command shell application. Safe mode will give you several options to choose from and define your restoration point. For example, you might click Safe Mode. Safe Mode with a command prompt, enable logging, enable low resolution video, or to go to the last known good configuration. You can also use debugging mode or disable automatic restart on the system failure. All of these are different options you'll have on the Safe Boot Up menu. So all of these will allow you to boot up into different special modes that can lead you further in the right direction of any of the causes on why you're having a boot failure. For example, if your computer hangs or crashes during the boot process, you might have a device that's actually related to that error. You might also have an issue with a driver. One of the options I mentioned just a minute ago tells you about disabling low resolution video. And this option, for example, allows the computer to boot without any exceptions related to incorrect video settings. So it'll just keep going and boot up and let you find out the other issues in the system. That way the computer will boot and identify any drivers that failed to load, but overlook the video issues. You have another option for booting as well, and this is using the last known good configuration. When you use this method, it allows you to restore the computer to the last working configuration you had. And this is especially handy for an example. When you have issues with your driver updates, you can select last configuration that was known through the F8 menu, and this will automatically restore the section of the registry with a copy that was available with your last successful boot. The downside of this is any data that was developed between the last successful boot, which could have been 10-15 days if you haven't rebooted the computer in a long time, this will be lost. So you have to determine if this restoration point is going to work for you and be worth the data loss. Most of our more recent versions of Windows, depending on which one you're operating, I use Windows 10, have a recovery environment. This is basically a shell where you can access the mouse, the network, and local drives from the RAM disk environment. And this is accessed through the power menu by selecting Restart. You're offered menus here to continue to normal boot. either enter recovery environment or turn off your PC. So you want to select the troubleshooting environment, and that gives you some advanced options to restore the system, perform a system image recovery, start repair, or go to command prompt. One of the common causes you'll see for window errors you might see is related to improper shutdown, and I've been guilty of doing this myself when either the power cord came unplugged and the battery died or things like that. But you'll see a message on the top of the screen that says Windows did not shut down successfully. And this might be due to the system not responding, but it gives you opportunities to recover your data using the safe mode configurations. On this slide, you can see the Windows option for recovery under the control panel, under System Security, and then under Security, System, and Maintenance. You can see the small recovery link at the bottom. It gives you the option to refresh your PC without affecting your files and to reset it completely or to start over. So you've got a couple of options you can click through. Basically got a hyperlink there where you see security, maintenance, and recovery. So I'm talking about the small word recovery there, and that'll allow you to refresh your PC. A lot of these repair fixes are relatively easy to perform if you simply know where to look and where to click with the right button. Many of your customers will not be familiar with these menus or be able to perform these emergency repairs on their own. So let's talk about factory repair partitions, startup repair, and system image recoveries. Factory repair partitions are actually hidden partitions on the system drive that contain an operating system image and all the drivers or hardware that were shipped with the system. To access the factory repair partition, you start the computer and press F12. A list of the bootable media will show on that screen and things that are detected by the BIOS. If a factory recovery partition exists, you can select it and choose to boot from it. Then you will be prompted to reload your system. An important thing to be aware of is when restoring your system by way of the factory recovery partition, it reformats your system drive, which means you lose all the data if you haven't already backed it up. Another option you have to perform an emergency repair is through the Windows menus. This is especially useful when you feel that the operating system files may be corrupt or you have an incompatible version. On occasion, some of these files are inadvertently deleted, so you've got some options there where things might have been inadvertently deleted or become corrupt. So in order to get to these files, you go to the Restart menu and select Startup Repair, and the computer will automatically restart and then perform these repairs. This may require you to have a Windows installation disk on a USB drive or some kind of thumb drive or zip drive though. Your next option for emergency repair is using the system image recovery. This image recovery takes a picture of your entire system drive and forms a backup which clones your current operating environment. That way, if you need to restore to a previously created system's image, you can do so. When restoring a system recovery image, it replaces every bit of the content on the computer's drive with the contents of the system image, so you want to make sure you're backing things up regularly. So there you go, you have 3 pretty good options to choose from for emergency repairs. It's hard to stress to computer users to make frequent backups. Quite often they don't know how, or it only becomes an issue when something bad like a computer crash has occurred. The important thing is that they make a backup to another medium such as a drive or an external USB disk, and then the file history becomes very important because you can always open the file history and go back and create original files to the control panel. To set this service up, you want to open the File History control panel and click Begin this service. You have to have a drive that has enough space to work from, and then you point the computer in the direction of the disk you want to use. You can choose a system server disk, or put it on a server, or put it in any kind of system disk, or a non-system disk such as a USB or a thumb drive. But the main thing is you're going to set up the scheduled times for this to occur. So you've got 2 options you can use here. You can use the PC Refresh and PC Reset when you want to work on backup and restoring your computer. So Refresh installs Windows and the data remains while the Reset completely cleans the drive. So you have to make sure you know which option you want to use. So once again, PC Refresh is exactly like reinstalling Windows and all of your data remains intact. PC Reset is truly resetting your PC and wipes the local system drive completely clean. When you restore your system, you can choose the restoration point and take the computer back to that specific time. On this screen, I show a number of the recovery tools available under the control panel, including creating a recovery drive, opening a system restore, and configuring your system restore. Most of what we have discussed so far is how to repair your computer when it's in a non-booting state. You might also have other kinds of recovery CDs or USBs or drives available from vendors you can use to restore your computer to its default factory installation settings. Quite often these require a significant amount of space, so a lot of times what you'll find on a drive is a hidden partition that contains all the tools you need to restore the image for your hard drive. In addition to the factory images, some hardware vendors give you the option of making a recovery image using special imaging software. So you might do that as a CompTIA A+ certified professional. You might have some imaging software that you keep handy in case you want to do this for clients or customers to make sure they've got a backup at later points in time. It's just part of continuity and recovery. In Chapter 14, we discuss preventive maintenance for your computers. There are additional things you can do in your scheduled maintenance to make sure your disks are backed up and to keep them running safely and smoothly. You want to make sure that you schedule your disk defragmentation. And in order to do this, you want to access your accessories and then go to System Tools and then go to the Task Scheduler. You can adjust the disk defragmentation from the default settings to any kind of settings that you want. You want to also make sure that your Windows updates occur and you accomplish any kind of security fixes or performance improvements that they send out to you. Then you want to make sure at last that you've got all of your anti-malware definitions and you perform any kind of driver and firmware updates. So I click on where we have got the red circle on the computer here, and you can go down and maintenance and go and set any of the appropriate times that you want. You can see the specific time where my last update ran on this computer. This video demonstration is going to cover recovery systems and disaster recovery. As you work as a CompTIA A+ certified professional, it's very important that you have the ability to preserve data, but also to recover it once it's been lost. Quite often, customers will bring you a computer once it has already crashed or once some data has been corrupted or lost. So quite often what we want to do is give them some preventative methods and always make sure that they know how to back things up and set that on a scheduled maintenance so that the information isn't lost. But if it is, there's a number of disaster recovery things that we can implement as far as tools to recover information. And those are things like System Restore, which is basically what I've got on the recovery setting here. You've got PC Refresh and Reset, and then you've got recovery images that you can use as well as CDs and drives. And ultimately, in between that, you want to set up some of your scheduled preventive maintenance as well as going ahead and making backups. So we'll talk about some recovery options that you have based on what the problem is and what you can do to repair that. So these are where you can do some of the advanced recovery tools. So I can create a recovery drive, I can open System Restore, or I can configure System Restore. So if you click here, it'll ask you if you want it to allow it to make changes to your device. You click yes, and it'll take you to creating a recovery drive. So what I would do is I would click next, and then I've got a drive connected to my computer, and I can actually save recovery on that drive. You have to have about 30 gig of size. I would click next on here, but this takes several minutes, so I'd basically be filming for you several minutes of a green bar going back and forth. But long story short, that's where you go to set up a recovery drive. You can open System Restore here and restore the system files and settings to a previous point. This will show you, basically it takes you to the last point where you had a significant event. So this is showing about 11:21. It did a Windows update. A lot of times when we talk about compatibility or things not working correctly, this is what we'll find is something was just recently loaded on a computer that caused an issue. So here I could click on here and select this and I can click next, and it'll look for different things. I can scan any kind of the affected programs and look for any kind of restore points that I really basically want to take it back to. So my computer will be restored to the state it was before this event, which was at about 11 o'clock. So I just click finish and it'll take it back to that restore point. I can configure a system restore. There's a lot of different information on here that you can look at. I've got a drive that's connected to the system. I've got my main system. You can undo some of the changes by reverting it back to the previous restore point. So if I click on here and I click next, I can pick this point and go back to it. So a number of things you can do to actually configure the system there. I can work remotely, and I'll do a remote demonstration and be able to show you exactly how you remote in with somebody and share their information in another demonstration. So I want to close this file. And the next thing I want to show you is the PC refresh. And this shows resetting this PC, so I click on here. Takes me to the settings page. Okay, so if your PC isn't running well, resetting it might help, and this lets you go back to a certain point. You can keep your personal files or remove them, and it reinstalls Windows. I'm just showing the options here. I'm not going to fully do that on this computer because I feel pretty comfortable with it, and it's a relatively new computer that doesn't have any issues. But you have the option to keep your files or remove everything. And depending on which one you click there, it's going to start, it's going to go into the reset. So I'm going to click cancel here. You can go back to the previous version of Windows 10, and this will get you back to areas before anything actually happened to the computer. It's going to be hard to tell whether it's a drive issue. It's going to be hard to tell whether it's some kind of compatibility issue. But there are a number of things you can do. You can do a particular startup. Now you can build a disk for recovery out of that. I've got a hard drive connected to this computer. What I can do is if I've already built a system recovery, I can plug that in and I can recover from it. So I would click here to restart it, and it would actually boot off of that system drive. So the recovery image, I can build an image and I can save it onto a computer and be able to have that just ready to go at any point in time that I want to have that available. So it's important that you use the PC refresh and reset if you want to go back to a specific time, and that you go ahead and you build a recovery image and you go ahead and do some kind of a rescue drive building there so you have that available. I wanted to talk about a couple other recovery options. Basically, when you're using your computer, you have to be able to determine exactly what's kind of going on and which type of the applications that you need to use. So you can go back to a specific restore point. You might need to use the PC refresh, or you can use a recovery image, or use one of your recovery system images like I've got covered here, or use a repair disk. So you've got several options, but you basically have to be able to tell what the problem is and then which point of restoration you need. So if you recently installed any kind of application and your program doesn't work well, you can restore it back to the system restore point. Then if you've recently added like any kind of an update, such as a Windows update, if that indicates or causes the computer not to function properly, you can remove the installed Windows update. Then you've got things where you need to start looking towards other media. You might have a system image that's created, or you might have a system repair disk. Both of those will be required if your computer won't start, and either you've already created a recovery drive or you don't have one. So if you've created a recovery drive through one of these, you're going to be okay. If not, your other option is you're going to have to go back and use your installation media that you used initially to put the Windows 10 on there. So when I'm looking here at this create a system image, I can click on here, And what it's going to do is it's going to do a little bit of analysis of what I've got on the computer and what I'm going to need to store. So I've got an external hard drive, which is a passport drive, and it's got about 66 gig of free memory. What it's giving me here is an indication of it's already done some kind of a calculation, and there's not enough space to back up everything on this drive. Long story short, these are the typical things that you can back up onto an external hard drive, and you'll want to be able to do that for your customers and clients, and everyone should do that so they'll have some kind of a backup. Basically, this is the system partition, so you can see it's about 500 megabyte. I've got a lot of things on the operating system, so this is almost 2 terabyte. And then you've got the Windows Recovery Environment System. So all of these are key if you want to get things back up and running on a computer. So what is showing here is everything I'm going to need to back this up. I'm really going to need about 165 gig to back up the selected drive that I've got, which is basically your system partition, your operating system components that you need, and your recovery system. So these are the file sizes over here, and I'm going to totally need 165.39 gigabytes. And then on my external drive, I've got about 66 gig. Not going to be enough space, but saying I had enough drive on the external hard drive and I clicked next, it would go ahead and it would back those up to that disk. You can also build a system repair disk. That's done here where you can click in what type of DVD drive you want to put in there. You click here and it will create a disk on your drive, so you'll have a backup that way. Another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is kind of your backup settings. Just talking here. You can go ahead and schedule what time you want to have your files backed up. So automatically back up my files. What you want to do is you'll click more options here. And you can click to back up your data now. This is where it would put it. It would put it on the passport. I can back up my files, and you select the time. Every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, daily. You can adjust all the times there. Keep my backups, and you select the time there, 1 year, 2 year, or forever. And you can add additional folders or files. So you can really just pick the most important things. A lot of times I put things like financial information or family information, things like pictures or things that I can't, that our family tends to update or add on there routinely, such as pictures. And those kind of things I'll leave on there to have it updated routinely, because I have students and children in the family that hook up their iPhones and other computer devices and things like that, and they'll download their pictures to the family computer. And what I find is there's always a large number of pictures on there, and I really want it to back up to a certain point. I don't want it to resave everything all over again. I just wanted to pick up the most recently added pictures and back those up on a disk, and I want it to do it fairly frequently, because I don't know exactly what they put on the computer and how often, but you can pick those up and put your specific drive that you want to have used it, put any kind of advanced settings onto there. So it's pretty handy, but the main thing is you've got to know exactly what point you need to restore to if you've had any categorically catastrophic things happen. But you want to be able to do a routine backup and set things into place on a routine basis.